The holiday season is your time to shine. Own the moment in occasion-worthy styles from Ashley Stewart. From sophisticated sequins for the office party to dressed-up denim for girls' night out to soft knits for cozy nights in and more. Ashley Stewart is the first word in holiday fashion for sizes 10 to 36. Shop festive new looks in stores and online at ashleystewart.com.
I love doggos so much, and I have a feeling that you do as well. That's why I'm very excited to partner up with Embark. They are a dog DNA testing kit, and they are amazing. I've done it on both of my pups. Top shelf. Love what they do. So go to embarkvet.com, and this will get you free shipping and save $60 with this promo code RAY, R-A-Y. So visit embarkvet.com to get free shipping and save $60 with the promo code RAY. Test your doggos, find out so much about them. Hey, it's me, Ray, host of this very podcast. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help you live healthier? And how would you use that knowledge to change your life? You can hear me talk about how insights from my DNA have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston explores how DNA isn't just about ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. On this season, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge has impacted the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. What's up, everybody? How are you doing this fine afternoon, evening, day, whenever it is you're listening to it? Thank you for listening to the podcast above all, because, there's many things you could be doing, but you are deciding to spend an hour of your time with me and our special guest, who this week is Madison Watkins. She's the bass player for metallic, hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call them. Stalwarts. Well, no, stalwarts, doesn't that mean you've been around for a long time? Anyways, Year of the Knife. They're an amazing metallic hardcore band. This is their second full length that they just released, called Internal Incarceration, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there we go. Just doing a little internet referencing, but it just came out last week. And it's a doozy. It's really, really, really good. Kurt Ballou produced it, and he gets great tones. So I had to have Madison on because I saw the band for the first time at Sound and Fury, which we talk about at the very beginning. And I was really impressed with them. I like what they do. I think that they are taking the whole, mid-90s metalcore vibe, but, putting a little more death metal influence in it. And it's just really, really good. And they're straight edge, and I love it. So Madison and I get into it, but let's check in with you, the listener. You're doing okay, hopefully. It's each week there is just, and I know this sounds like a broken record, but each week it seems like more and more things stack up to where it's really, really hard to see the good from the bad. Fortunately for me, I'm going to go ahead and be selfish here, but my wife has passed another checkpoint in regards to some tests and everything. For those of you that have been listening to the show for a long time, know that my wife has been battling cancer for many years. She's been in the clear now for about 4 years, and it's really, really, really special when we get these moments of victory where it's like, cool, we don't have to worry about that right now. And I just always appreciate you, the listener, for checking in on me. You can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com, or, all the social media profiles in which you do. But I really, really genuinely appreciate that. So some good news amidst this onslaught of bad news. But I just want to dive into this conversation because it's so good. Okay. So like I said, check out their newest full length that just came out, Internal Incarceration. You can find a link to it in the show notes. And let's dive in with Madison.
I think, I mean, I've only seen you guys once. I mean, even though I know you've played Chain Reaction, which is like my, local backyard venue, but I saw you.
Cool.
Yeah, I saw you.
Lucky.
Yes, it's a beautiful spot. I saw you at Sound and Fury for the first time. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, I was, and so I think was that last year? I don't know. I mean, time collapses. Okay, yeah. So
yeah, that was last year. We went out to Sound and Fury. That was right before we did the Summer Pure Noise tour.
Yes, that's
and
right.
We drove out, played Sound and Fury, and then just like hung out in LA for a week and started the tour.
That's good. That's the way to start tours, right? Just
Yeah.
chill in California, and then be like, all right, let's do this.
Have some time off.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I like I said, I was already interested in watching you guys, and then you played, and I very much enjoyed it. And I'm sure I am not the first person to be able to say this, but it's like there are, obviously a lot of mid '90s influences that exist within your band, and I'm sure everyone is just like, oh yeah, you guys are pretty much like Disembodied. You got a girl bassist, and like, and is it one of those things where you're, I presume, on one hand, flattered by the fact that you could be compared to a band like that, but then also like, oh, is really the only reason that you're comparing us to a band like that is because we are heavy and I play bass in the band? Is that like the lowest hanging fruit you're comparing it to, or do you just like whatever, it's fine?
Honestly, I mean, I have heard Disembodied before, but we don't get that a ton. I think that sometimes people will hear one person say, oh, this band sounds like this, and then people just latch onto it. So it's like we all love Kickback, and like it's definitely an inspiration, but I wouldn't say that our band sounds exactly like Kickback. And I think people saw like one person say like, oh, Year the Knife sounds like Kickback, and that was kind of like a crazy, like every single person was saying it for a little bit. As far as like being compared to other female musicians, I think that comparison is a lot heavier for female vocalists. Like, I think a lot of times for a while, all of my friends that sang for bands that were girls, like they were like, oh, this band sounds like Punch. And it's like the vocalist of Punch has a very, very distinct vocal style.
Yep.
And these girls sounded literally nothing like her. And I was just like, it was like for fans of Punch. And I was like, for fans of girls in bands, I guess is what they're trying to say.
Right.
It's so I don't get it too much. And Tara's an awesome bassist, so that is flattering if anybody wants to make that comparison. But
yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and it does. It's like you understand it on one hand, and then I'm sure you get frustrated on the other hand, where, like you said, there are so many distinctions within the sound of bands and music and the way people express themselves that the common denominator of a gender being thrown on it, it's like, well, that's not an apt comparison. Like, we just happen to have this, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's like low hanging fruit. It's like people that don't do the research or don't really take time to listen to the sound of a band. I think when people make comparisons based on gender, that's pretty much all they're doing.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Because, I mean, especially too, this exists less and less as, music journalism becomes more, nicheified, because there isn't this like, massive culture moving website that, covers metal and hardcore or whatever, that more people are familiar with your stuff as they go into speaking with you or, your fellow bandmates. So there's less of that, like, I mean, even though you get it all the time where it's like, oh, what does Year of the Knife mean? Like, there's hopefully a little more intelligent questions that exist now as opposed to, the cut and paste interviews that existed so many years ago.
What is up with that? Everyone, like, it's like a lot of people ask with the same few questions, like, how did you get the name? How did you guys meet? What inspired the band? I mean, right. I understand like that might be something they're curious about, but it's funny when those questions have been answered like 4,000 times.
Sure. And I mean, especially with the advent of the internet, like once everybody has kind of answered those questions 10 to 15 times over, you don't really need to like pick apart that scab anymore. It's like,
right.
Yeah, we've
it's
already
not like decades ago where it's like in a zine and you can't, there's not like an archive for zines that you can search for. Now it's like a simple Google search.
Right.
Will bring up pretty much anything about the band you want to know about.
Totally. Yeah. We have a thing called Wikipedia that is able to really, and it's funny too, because I also find the, when you are, or, when I'm preparing for these chats with people, there are times where I find it bizarre when I can't find information about people. Or I'm just like, wait,
right.
what the heck? Like, usually I can kind of, like, and I'm like, maybe this person's being cagey on the internet and they don't want to talk about this, but yeah. Kind of putting the focus on you as a person. I know you were born and raised in Delaware, and clearly that's where you still reside.
It is.
My only personal experience in Delaware, I think I played one show there. I cannot recall the venue, but I was on tour with.
Was it the Harmony Grange?
Oh man, this was like early 2000s. So like we were on, my band was on tour with This Day Forward and The Rise, and I just can't remember the venue, but it was one of those things where most people look at Delaware and are just like, it's like the Wayne's World joke, I'm in Delaware. Like, there's nothing that like screams, any sort of like cultural significance. And of course I'm, painting with a very broad brush here. But what, growing up, your experience with, Delaware was, what? Fill in the blank. Like, what, talk to me about that.
I think a lot of people, especially touring bands, when they talk about Delaware, so we used to have a venue called the Grange, which is where I'm assuming that you played, in Wilmington. And there used to be a bunch of crazy shows there when we were younger. But then when the venue closed down, it's just been like really, really difficult to find venues. But there's a kid named James Austin, and he books like, hold on one second. I think are you still there?
I am, yes.
Haha, sorry. Skype call. There's this kid named James, and he books some shows in Wilmington, but it's like, we're all trying to kind of get back to like where it was when we were younger, where there were shows every weekend in Delaware. But like you said, most bands that pass through, they're like, I passed through Delaware to pay a toll, or like, oh, I heard you guys have beaches, but it's like, that's kind of the extent of what they know about Delaware. Right. For me, it was like, I went to an art school for middle school and high school in Wilmington. And a lot of people from my school were like, I can't wait to leave Delaware. I can't wait to move to New York. I can't wait to move to Philly. Like, I just have to get out of here. And I think that people that are from Delaware either have this like need inside them to leave, like they feel like it's the worst place, or they're like, I really like it. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, when you were younger, maybe you felt like there wasn't like a ton to do here, but I actually really love living in Delaware because it's close to Philly, it's close to DC, it's close to Baltimore, it's close to New York, but you don't have to like live in the city. And then the cost of living is like a lot cheaper. So it's like, I probably wouldn't be able to afford a house. I definitely wouldn't be able to afford a house in, New York or something like that. But, a lot of my friends are here, my family's here. So I actually really loved living in Delaware.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, I appreciate the, description of that, because I do think that there is people ultimately run into the idea of the quality of life and quality of living, where it's like, hey, do I need to be at this, like, do I need to be in Manhattan in order to be happy? It's like, well, no, I could just live like close-ish to it. Like, I don't need
It's
that.
like anytime you want to go, it's not far. Like, it's really centrally located. And personally, like, I love going to the city, but I love not living in the city.
Right.
I like being able to find parking easily. And it's one of those things too with touring. It's like a lot of the places that I would want to visit we're able to hit on tour. So it's kind of nice to have like a more chill home base.
Right. Yeah. Suburban life is not bad. I mean, Descendants obviously sung about it for many, many songs.
They knew what they were talking about.
Exactly. And so what was your family structure like as you were growing up? Like mom and dad in the house, brothers and sisters? What did it look like?
I was actually an only child until I was 11. And then my brother was born. My parents split when I was super young, and I actually grew up with my grandparents for like, I don't know, the first several years of my life, and then lived with my mom and my brother's dad for a while. But I had like a super tight relationship with my grandparents. And
was this your grandparents on your mother's or your father's side?
My mother's side. My dad's family actually lives in California, and I don't know them very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I presume so it sounds like you had a much tighter relationship with, I guess, your mom and your mom's side of the family rather than your father?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Accurate. I'm sure that was, being 11 and then all of a sudden having another sibling on the scene, like that must have been, I guess, an adjustment, interesting. Like, because I presume too, you also had to help with kind of the childcare in some respects.
Yes, I did. My brother's cool. It's funny being he's 17 now. So it's funny, like being so far apart in age and like seeing him grow up and now seeing him be like an actual functioning person.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I remember when I was changing your diaper. Like,
Exactly. And it's like, it's funny because like they always joke like if you're at that age, it's like a built-in babysitter. And it's funny now, like now that he is like in his late teens, like I can't even think about a lot of the time that he was really little. But then on the other hand, it's like I think about him being tiny and like how is he old enough to drive?
right. Totally. Yeah.
It's very bizarre.
Right. Because you not only did you provide the, like you said, the built-in sort of babysitting functions and childcare, and then it's just weird. I mean, in the same way that, I have a 9-year-old son, and it's just weird to look at him as a being because it's just like, dude, like, you still take showers with me. Like, but then at the same time, like you're also an independent in these respects. And yeah, it's just time does kind of collapse in on itself where, if you're viewing it through the prism of somebody else's life growing up.
Right. Yeah. It's very, very strange.
Yeah. And I guess kind of on that, did you, kind of take to that sort of, babysitter, like, motherly role, or was that something that you were like, I'm doing this, but I don't necessarily enjoy it?
Yeah, I don't know. My mom always told me that I had an old soul and that I was kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like I was kind of forced to grow up when I was younger. So going into that role and like it didn't feel strange to me.
Right.
And I feel like that's the type of person I am in life too, is I kind of try to care or help people sometimes more than even myself.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the function of some people are, either by the circumstances that they're given, or it's kind of just hardwired, predisposed within them to be like, oh, I just want to take care and be nurturing. And that,
right.
male, female, it doesn't matter. Like sometimes it's just hardwired.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that definitely is something that was like somehow programmed into me.
Yeah. It's also really cool that you had a tight relationship with your grandparents, because I think a lot of people they have the experience of visiting their grandparents, maybe a couple times a year, and they're those weird old people that live in a, smelly house or whatever. Like they just, it's like a level of disconnect that many kids have, but clearly you didn't have that experience because you were living with them and you were, you were being parented by them.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for my grandparents, and both of them have since passed away, a few years ago, which I still struggle with all the time. But the time that I have with them and just the way that they raised me, I'll forever be grateful for that. They were just two of like the best people you can imagine.
That's awesome. And then having that multi-generational experience too is, I think, really valuable, because sometimes you only view the world through, maybe your parents' eyes, and then you see like, oh, like my parents' think a little differently than my parents. Right. And yeah.
I absolutely think that definitely impacts the way that you grow up. And I think that other people that I've talked to that were, raised by their grandparents or live with their grandparents have a similar experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, my parents were divorced when I was about 4, and my grandparents were on my mom's side were very influential to me in a similar fashion and helped raise. I didn't live with them, but they were literally next door. And just like you, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything because of that sort of multi-generational experience. It's just,
and you're right. Not everybody gets to have that, and I didn't have that on my dad's side. So it's like, I know that the relationship I have with my grandparents is something to be cherished and to be thankful for, because, not everybody even gets to meet their grandparents.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. And so what kind of kid did you, find yourself being? Like you mentioned, the description of being an old soul, were you kind of like, and some people use this description like, oh, I was born 40 or whatever, where you just have kind of a, like you're maybe not as like silly as your peers, or like you said, you kind of just have this level of responsibility where it's just like, oh yeah, like, I'm 11, but, and I'm a kid, but like, I'm not into all these other kid stuff. What was it like for you?
I think I was like a super weird kid. I don't even know.
Sure.
My grandparents' house had like this big woods behind it. And my best friend growing up, she was like super girly, And I loved like pastel and pink and purple stuff, but I also loved like going and playing in the mud and trying to catch tadpoles. So it's like my closest friend thought that was like super weird when I was little. And I feel like I always felt most at peace when I was younger, when I was like outside, just like in nature. And then on the flip side of that, I would spend a lot of time just like watching cartoons and playing video games. And like I definitely had friends growing up and friends in school, but I still do enjoy like alone time.
Sure. Like it's it sounds to me the way you're describing it, it's like you had these dual worlds that sometimes people didn't understand because of the idea that like, oh, you're either an outdoor kid or you're an indoor kid, like
right. And it wasn't so much that like the old soul thing was something that my mom said, but not something that I ever like really felt old, or really felt like childish things were like not something that interested me, because I still am interested in childish things.
Sure.
But I think there's like a dichotomy that a lot of people try to like box people's personalities into one thing. And I think that most people are pretty multifaceted, and doesn't really make sense to only have one interest or one sort of personality.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's also kind of inherent of a kid experience as well. Like you aren't mature enough or have the vocabulary to describe why you like what you like. You just get drawn to it, and it's instinctual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Which is why I think it's so weird when people try to like shut their kids off of certain things that they're interested in. Like if a boy was interested in playing with dolls, like I played with action figures and nobody was like, you should play with Barbies instead.
Oh, for sure.
I think that you should just like let kids explore whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And it is, you saying that just triggered a memory in myself. Like I remember there was like these neighbors I had, and a girl was like maybe 2 or 3 years older than me, and she liked to dress like a cowboy. And she then, I remember one day she was like, hey, like put this on. And basically it was like, sort of like a cowgirl outfit. And I remember putting it on and being like, hey, this is pretty sick. Like, look at these, ruffles or whatever. But I remember her little brother being kind of like, why are you wearing that? And I was just like, I don't know, because we're playing. And,
right.
I mean, it was just a fleeting moment. It wasn't anything that like impacted me. But the fact that I remember it now, to your point, is like, yeah, just imagine if someone came up to you and was like, oh, no, here, play with this, Madison. Like, this is silly. This is boy stuff or whatever.
It's strange. And it's like the same thing that you were saying, like one year for Halloween, I was like really obsessed with Peter Pan, and my mom was like, do you want to be Tinkerbell? And I was like, no, I want to be Captain Hook. And she was like, awesome. So she like made me a Captain Hook costume.
That's great.
And it's hilarious because my husband and I are the same age, and he has a picture of him. His sisters, like all of his sister and his cousin went as, I think they all dressed up as Tinkerbell. So it's like almost the same year. He was dressed up as Tinkerbell to match his cousin and sister, and I was dressed up as Captain Hook.
So good.
Like when we were little kids. So bizarre.
Mortal enemies. You would have had to fight each other on the street. And it also just kind of, from other interviews that, I've read or listened to of you, it seems like you always kind of gravitated towards art at large. Was school one of those things that you, I mean, clearly you cared about because, you graduated college and kind of did all that sort of stuff. But, how were your studies, Madison?
Oh, honestly, it's funny talking about it now. I feel like I really enjoyed school. And I think a lot of that was my grandfather. He, started teaching me math at a very basic level, but he started teaching me math and teaching me history when I was really, really little. So I was always really fascinated by learning, and kind of a nerd in that sense. But yeah, I've always kind of been interested in learning more, and I had, grandparents and parents that supported that. And the art school, it was cool because when I was younger, I think that I did feel pressure, and even like going up into college, like after I went into art school, I did feel pressure to, well, you get good grades, you're really good at math, you're really good at science. Why wouldn't you be like a doctor or, go into some sort of field like that? But I was never like passionate about it. I actually went into college I think I went in as a physical therapy major, and then I switched to dietetics, and then I switched to graphic design because it was like went into college trying to do what I thought would make everyone happiest, and then realized that they just wanted me to do what I was passionate about.
Uh-huh.
Which I know is strange because I went to an art school all those years, but I really, I did feel a bit of pressure to, sorry if I'm rambling a bit, but I did feel a bit of pressure to go into a more like scientific field because I got good grades.
Sure. Because right. And first of all, never apologize for rambling because clearly that's what podcasts are about. But yeah, no, I understand where it's like, if you have a proclivity for a thing that doesn't necessarily match up with your interests, it's like, well, dude, you're good at this.
You feel like
thing.
you're wasting it. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And like, it's like, but I'm just not happy doing I thought that I would be happy because I do like helping people. And I thought, maybe I could go in and do like be a nutritionist or a dietitian for like kids. But it's like one of those things where it's like, even if that was something that I would have enjoyed or been good at, I don't think that it's something that I would have felt like super fulfilled or like the way that I feel about doing art and playing music. Like, I don't think it would ring as true for me as those things do.
I love dogs so much. That's why I'm incredibly excited to welcome Embark on as a sponsor. They are a dog DNA testing kit, and what makes them cool is they scan for 215 genetic health risks across 350 breeds. And I want to give you $60 off and free shipping. So go to embarkvet.com, use the promo code RAY, and it unlocks that offer. And it also unlocks so many cool things that you can find out about your pup. And it's super easy. You get a little test tube with a Q-tip, you put it in the pup's mouth, send it back to Embark. They email you all of these results. It's very fast, easy, and I love doing it. 72% of pup parents are puzzled when it comes to their dog's breed. It's time to end these guessing games. This holiday season, give the dog lover in your life something they won't expect, the chance to decode their dog. It's the perfect time to shop for an Embark dog DNA test. Right now, Embark has a limited time offer on their breed and health kit and purebred kit for listeners of this show. Go to embarkvet.com to get free shipping and save $60 with promo code RAY. Visit embarkvet.com and use promo code RAY to save $60 today. Do it for your pup. Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's never been a better time for football fans to join the huddle with BetMGM. Sign up today and place a $10 pregame wager on any pro football team to win. If any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game, you'll win $200 in free bets regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you make your first bet. Get on the field and find out why nothing beats a win with the king of sportsbooks. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in free bets if any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Sure. Yeah, it makes total sense because there are... sometimes, I mean, you see this with, band life where there are times in which, a person that isn't, kind of good, quote unquote, at being, like the business person of the band, gets kind of thrust into that. And then they're like, dude, I don't want to do this. It's like, just because I
Yeah.
sing for the band doesn't mean that like I should be the business person. Come on.
Right. And everybody has like different strengths to that effect. And I think that I definitely jumped into that just because I do that for like our own business.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think about long term, like all of the different things, like all the different courses I take and all of the different things that I learned helped me to be where I am now, to know kind of different facets of it. Like if I hadn't ended up doing marketing on top of doing design, like I think that I would be a bit behind in like, I don't know, just like promoting the band, promoting our store and stuff like that. I think that I wouldn't have as much knowledge as if I hadn't gone to college.
Sure, absolutely. When you are, younger and kind of doing these things independently of school, you don't realize you're actually developing a muscle for, like you said,
right.
You're just doing it. It's like, oh, I'm booking a show. It's fine. Like people are like, wait a minute, what do you mean you booked a show? Like that, other 15 and 16-year-olds aren't doing that typically.
I am here to proselytize about rockabilia.com. First of all, use the code PC100words. That gets you 15% off your order. You can use that as the promo code. That way, Rockabilia knows that you heard this from this show. But Rockabilia is the real deal. Independently owned business, selling so much awesome merch. They've got so many things that it's hard for me to keep up. There are, I check in with the site every couple of days to kind of see what's happening because, frankly, I order from them a decent amount. But I just think what they do is so cool. It's all officially licensed stuff, fast shipping, and you're going to get a high quality garment. None of this horrific bootleg stuff that you see out on the internet, and it just makes me really, really sad because it's not like any of the bands are getting paid for that. So please visit rockabilia.com, use the code PC100words, 15% off your order, and you will be happy and with a closet fully stocked of band merch. Okay.
How did you kind of start to, back your way into independent music? I'm going to presume that a lot, since you didn't have any like older siblings to lean on, I'm going to presume it kind of just started to, come into your life via other friends at school, or how did it come?
It's actually kind of funny. So that venue that I was talking about, the Grange, was like walking distance from my house. And it really was like every weekend almost. Like it would be like 4 to 6 shows a month on the weekends, like Fridays and Saturdays. And I went, I think that there was like, we were doing a play at school, and then like one of the girls was like listening to like Slipknot or something. And she was talking about like, oh, have you gone to the Grange? And this was when I was in like 6th grade. And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. And then when I found that it was by my house, I started just going there like as much as I possibly could. Like I just asked to go there every weekend. And it was just like seeing, like, I feel like now with the internet, it's like you listen to the bands that, like you check the bands out a lot more beforehand. Like we just had like MySpace music.
Right.
And a lot of times I would just go to see the band without knowing what they sounded like and just sit there and watch all the bands just because it was like something to do and something fun. But it's funny because most of my friends from school, like, were not into heavier music. I just made more friends from going to the Grange so much.
Right. You were like, honestly, I love that description because I think that there are, anybody that has toured kind of is able to spot that kid like at a venue, like if it's a venue that's existed for a long time, whatever, your chain reactions or what have you, where it's like, oh, you can tell that this kid, like, just shows up to, as many shows as possible for this particular thing. And it's great because they, like you said, you're just getting exposed to, it's like, well, looks like tonight I'm at a ska show. Like, okay, like, or whatever. You're drinking it all in because you like the experience of the, independent live music stuff as opposed to like, oh, I'm only going to this one show because I like this band.
Right. Yeah. And you get to like expose to a lot more. And then if you see, that's what's funny now is I feel like a lot of times you make friends with people on the internet before you ever meet them. But like growing up, it was like, oh, I've seen this person at the last 4 shows I've been to. Maybe I'll just like walk up and talk to them.
Right. Yeah. I feel like we need to know each other now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's such a bizarre thing to do. Like, even if I saw someone a bunch now, I wouldn't go up and be like, hey, I've seen you around. Do you want to be friends? Like,
yeah. Well, and it is weird too, because I think as you get older within this independent music scene, you feel this interesting kinship with people, up and down the spectrum of ages, where it's just like, even though, you and I have never met, it's one of those things where it's just like, I already feel like I know Madison in some capacity. Like, and it's just that it's that weird familiarity that is only bred through, and I use this term, very specifically, like a devotion to independent music, and
Right.
yeah,
And you have that similar experience coming up through it.
Right.
It seems like it's like that no matter where in the country, it's like every place had kind of like a staple venue, and a lot of people growing up had that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is incredibly special to what you're talking about, because there is that, a parent feels safe enough for a kid to go there. And then, it just kind of, it feels safe, but at the same time, you're getting your mind blown by all this stuff. And it's like, oh man, this is setting my life up for something completely different than anybody else that I know of right now. And, so what were kind of like the sort of foundational bands within the more sort of like independent music stuff? Because I mean, even though, like you said, there was a lot of shows happening, I presume that it was a mixture of local bands and touring bands.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it was a lot of different genres and stuff too. So it would be like, a hardcore show, a metalcore show, metal show, deathcore show, pop punk show. They had, all different tours come through. I think like even like Paramore like played one weekend, and then Terror played the next weekend. You know what I mean? It was like one of those things.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was cool because then you never really got burnt out, because it wouldn't be the same local bands playing every single show. It was like a good variety of different types of music and different tours coming through. And then like the locals that you love to see, you get to catch them like every few shows.
Sure. What were some of the bands that spoke to you earliest?
Trying to think. I think from Delaware, one of the first bands that I saw that I probably saw the most when I was little was like My America's Watching Tigers Die, which I don't expect you to know that band.
No, but I try to, keep up on most random bands. So educate me. This is great.
They were a band that I saw a bunch locally. I'm trying to remember what like one of the first shows was that I saw them at, but I think that they headlined like the very first show that I went to at the Grange. And then like Dead and Buried was like another Delaware band that like played a bunch. Lifeless was a band like growing up, we saw them like all the time.
Sure.
And then Strength for Reasons from Pennsylvania, but I would see them on shows like all the time too.
Nice. And were you, did you kind of immediately start to think of the notion of playing music? 'Cause I mean, I know that you had vocal training and you played, piano as a younger girl, but, did you kind of get drawn to the idea like, oh, I want to play in a band once you started to see this stuff?
Yeah, it was weird because like when I first started going to shows, like I don't remember seeing any girls playing in any of the heavier bands. I think honestly, one of the first female musicians that I saw, I think, is it a keyboard player or something for that deathcore band Winds of Plague?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
I could be, I was gonna say I could be wrong, but I think that was like the first time that I saw a girl like on stage at the Grange that wasn't like a pop show or like a pop punk show.
Yep.
And it's funny, I never wanted to play like keys in a heavier band, but I always thought it would be really cool to play. And I started out playing guitar. I actually like learned to play bass for Year of the Knife. And I feel like it's not very hard to transition if you know one or the other.
For sure.
Probably easier to transition from guitar to bass than the other way around.
Right. Two less strings.
But,
right.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm kind of simplifying it down. But I mean, I would see the bands and I would always be like, oh, that would be cool. But it was one of those things that like growing up, it would like a girl really, really stood out if they were in a band. I feel like now there's still a little bit of that depending on like where you play or like where in the world you play. But like now it's like a nice mix of, girls and guys playing in bands.
For sure.
So it's not like a bizarre thing to see, a female musician, which is, it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just the sheer exposure that you get, not only, through whatever your local live music scene, but then, the internet can clearly show you, hundreds and hundreds of examples of that existing. So you can feel a little more connected to that idea.
Right.
And so, and as you started to, really kind of get into this, were your, grandparents and your mom kind of like, what is Madison getting into? This is a little bizarre. Like, how did they react to you, bringing this stuff home?
So my mom actually, she was like a DJ in college, and my mom likes like punk music. And she's not super, like, she likes Year of the Knife, but she's not super into hardcore, but she thought it was cool because that was like a lot of the music that she liked was like punk and alternative. And I know, like, it was funny. I was telling her one time, like, oh, I'm going to go see the Cro-Mags. She's like, oh, I interviewed them when I was in college. And I was like, what? Like, it's one of those things. She never thought it was weird because she like understood it. My grandparents, I'm trying to think, I don't really think they got to see like videos of Year of the Knife to like where we're playing now. I think that like my extended family, when they see it, they think it's super bizarre, or they just like think it's fun. Like they think moshing is funny because from the outside looking in, it's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
100%.
But it's like they think it's cool. They see that, you know, we're having fun, and they see that it's like a really positive outlet for all of us. So I don't think there's like any, even if people in our family think it's bizarre, I don't think there's anyone that like thinks that we're doing something wrong or thinks that it's like super strange. They're just like, oh yeah, like they play in a band.
Right.
Even if they don't get it, they support it.
Sure.
Which is cool.
Right. No, that's, I mean, it's cool that your mom had a context for that, because I think that, you know, the disconnect that, you know, many parents have with the stuff that their kids bring home is that they can't even place it in their head. They're like, what?
Right.
What? I don't even understand where this sit. Like, this doesn't even sound like music. Like, you know.
Right. They're like, why are they yelling like that over this? I feel like it would be better if he was just singing or something.
Yeah. I'll bet you. Right. I'll bet you he has a really nice voice. Why doesn't he just do that?
Or like when you tell people, like, if anytime I tell someone that like has never heard of Year of the Knife, like, oh, I play in a band, they're like, you sing? I'm like, no, I play bass and like I do like backing vocals, and they're like, singing? I'm like, no.
Yeah, just loud screaming stuff. You probably won't like it.
Don't worry about it. Don't look it up.
Totally. Yeah. Your whatever your vision of me could probably be shattered pretty quickly if you look too much into it.
Let's not go there.
Right. Then you'll look at me looking like a sweaty mess on stage, and it's just not good. And so, you know, because you graduated with the graphic design degree, right?
Yeah, I double majored. I did advertising design and then multimedia design with a focus in web.
Okay, got it. And so it sounds like that was kind of your vision of your sort of life path, career path, as it were. Did you have an idea of like, oh yeah, I would like to, you know, end up in a major city working for an advertising firm, or what was kind of your vision for that?
You know, it's funny. I feel like I just really liked doing design. And when I went to art school, I actually majored in musical theater, which is funny now because they had a visual arts program, but I just always felt like I wasn't good enough compared to my peers. Because a lot of kids, it's like from the time they were in middle school, they were doing like crazy realism and like, or they had already found their style when they were like so young. So I didn't really get into actually doing art until I was in college. And I started out at University of Delaware, and I made like a portfolio after I was already accepted to the school to try and transfer majors. And was thinking like, I don't know if I'm good enough to even get accepted, but at least I'll try. And from there, I think that I don't even know if I had like a specific goal or I don't think I ever wanted to work for another firm. And I remember like growing up, my grandfather said that I probably wouldn't be happy working for anyone else. And I don't know if that shaped what I thought would make me happy, or if he was just, you know, right from as young as I was. But my grandfather was, you know, owned his own business, and he was like, you're very like me. Like, I think that you would be better off being your own boss and, you know, pushing yourself rather than working for someone else.
Sure.
So I think that was always my end goal, but I didn't necessarily like have like a, here's what I'm going to do to get there, or like, I didn't have anything dreamed up of what that looked like. I was just like, that would be a nice place to end up.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What sort of business did your grandfather run?
He was in golf. So he actually, I am terrible that I can't explain it, but he designed like shafts and golf club heads.
Oh, sure.
And he did something, the way that they make golf club heads now, I know it was something that he invented. It was something with like balancing the mass so that it was like a perfect hit where like the golf club, I really can't explain it.
No, it's okay.
It was something like that, like balancing. I think frequency balancing or frequency matching or something like that. with golf clubs.
No, that's incredible. I golfed for many, many years and still enjoyed the sport. So that's really cool that, he had that and was able to, carve that out to where you could see, because I presume he was a golfer as well. So like you could kind of, you could see the fact that he could make a living out of something he's passionate about.
Right. Yeah, he and my grandmother both golfed, and they both, were super passionate about it. And I would go downstairs. The basement of my grandparents' house was like his office, and I remember he was trying to explain to me, like, here's how you find like the perfect balance of like the center of, gravity or the center of mass or whatever. And he was like, you have X, Y, and Z planes, and I was just like, I am 7 years old and I have no idea what you're talking about. But I just like kind of, I was fascinated by what he was saying, but I still like to this day don't understand how he did what he did.
Sure, right. Hey, could I play with the putter and the golf ball?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, can I go to the driving range? Can we go into the woods and hit golf balls?
Totally. No, that's really that's adorable. I could like close my eyes and see that picture, in the basement of you just being like, oh, interesting. This is complex algebra. And I don't even know that word is.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
Not even understanding like the dimension, like what he was saying on a dimensional level. I was just like, letters and numbers make math. Cool.
Yeah, perfect. Got it. Thanks, Grandpa. So as you started to, kind of get out in the world, and figure out what it was that you were going to do, because Year of the Knife started, I guess, what year did you guys start playing, and like where was that in your own spectrum of your life?
What year did we start playing? I feel like I remember seeing in an article that I read recently that it was 2015, but
Got it.
Brandon, Year of the Knife, before it was like the lineup that it was now, went through like a bunch of different iterations. And then I'm trying to think. I'm literally terrible with years. The band that we have now, we've had, I think, for like 2 years.
Okay.
But we've been playing music together since like 2015, I want to say.
Got it. And it is Year of the Knife kind of, I guess, your first band experience, or did you play in, kind of terrible bands before it?
I had a terrible screamo band that I will not list the name of.
Oh, you're breaking my heart, Madison. That's usually first band names are pretty much the best of all time, because even without you saying the genre of the band, you're able to immediately identify what the band sounds like.
Maybe I'll tell you later, but not on the spot.
You're like, it exists on the internet and people will make fun of me. So,
but for actually like a real band where like we weren't just playing in somebody's like house party or garage, like Year of the Knife was the first band for me.
Yeah, got it.
Which all the other guys were in a bunch of other bands before.
Sure. So there was a little more, I guess, experience with that in knowing how to, kind of get out of the garage, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. Something that is clearly important to, you and Year of the Knife in general is, straight edge. And, you guys have, put it out there where it's like there is a lot of connectivity to straight edge and, addiction, and you guys trying to, get away from that. And that was like the impetus of why you became straight edge, because you saw a lot of, issues in the fact that, addiction is a really tough beast from that perspective. Kind of, I guess, kind of walk me through the, the introduction of straight edge to you, just because I find it so incredibly fascinating when people, have different touch points for what straight edge is and means, because, people, are of different ages and get introduced to it in different ways, where it's like, oh yeah, I heard Minor Threat and I was straight edge, or it's like, oh no, I saw Davey Havoc and I'm straight edge. And it's like, so yeah, I kind of walk me through
California.
Yeah, totally.
Davey Havoc.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think one of the things too that I didn't really mention about Delaware, there was like when we were in high school, there was like a really, really bad heroin epidemic, to the point where they were like playing incredibly like crazy graphic videos, like scare videos, to be like, don't ever try heroin because you will die. Like,
sure.
They were playing, we had like assemblies and they had to show them at every school, because it was just like every week on the news, you would see like, no one expected this girl that went to an all girls Catholic school that got good grades to die from a heroin overdose. Like, it was just like a lot of kids were getting into it. And it was just like a really sad thing. I think everybody like knew someone you either knew someone personally or one of your friends knew someone personally that was like on heroin when we were in high school. And I think the first time that I was introduced to straight edge, it was definitely at the Grange. It might have been one of the local bands that was X in it to win it X, or it might have been a touring band that just had like straight fucking edge shirt.
Sure.
And like, you know what I mean? Like you hear people like singing about it. And I think like one of the singers was just like, all the kids like in the back that are drinking behind the venue, like, you guys fucking suck. Like just like really, really like militant straight edge people. And I was just like, oh, what is this about?
Yep.
And I like growing up, one of those things, like a lot of our friends were into drugs or were into drinking. But it was something that I don't know. You grow up and you see people suffer and you see people struggle with drugs and with drinking. And it's one of those things where you're like, I don't want that to be my life. And you know, the more that you learn about it, that it's a hereditary thing. Like I think a lot of people don't understand addiction, and they demonize the people that become addicted to things. Like, yes, it's a choice to start doing drugs, but people are sick when they keep using them. It's not that they want to keep using drugs or want to keep disappointing people or want to keep feeling miserable. They get caught in this cycle of it and they become addicted to it, and there's just like really no way out for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a vicious cycle. And once, you know, vicious cycle, slippery slope, whatever you want to call it. And then, you know,
right.
Usually once a person's in the middle of it, there's no way to get out.
Right. And I think especially if you have a family history of addiction, it's not to say that if someone in your family is an addict that you are doomed, you know, if you touch any sort of drugs or alcohol, that's going to be your future. But for me, growing up seeing that, I was like, I don't even want any chance of that being my future. And like growing up, I don't know, struggling with depression, I think that if you have certain things, you owe it to yourself to say, is this going to be something that could become a problem in my life? And is that a risk that you want to take? Or would you rather have more control over yourself and your decisions? And that's kind of what it was for me, was just making the decision myself that I wanted to have a different life and a different, you know, relationship with drugs and alcohol, where it wasn't a part of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that, you know, as the movement has, you know, evolved and how it's, you know, become so many different things to so many different people, because, you know, whatever, it's like people can get exposed to straight edge via, you know, like mainstream television or whatever, you know, and
right. Yeah, some people, it's like, oh, I saw CM Punk. Like, we still get comments like that, like, is CM Punk, you know, doing this? And it's like, that's cool. I think like any way that you can get exposed to it, because it's like, what if your town doesn't have a venue? What if you don't have like an older cousin or an older brother that like talked to you about straight edge or that like showed you cool bands? I think any way that you can get exposed to it is cool, because it's like, it's been such a positive thing for me and for everyone in our band. That I think any way that people get exposed to it or find out about it is really cool.
Yeah, it's like whatever touch point you have, it's like that's, you know, incredibly important. And I mean, I made the joke about Davey Havoc, but it's like, you know, I just remember working, you know, I worked for PETA for many years, and, you know, you're thrown to, you know, a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds and experiences. And I remember talking to a kid who was like, you know, he's in his early 20s and I was in my early 30s at that time. And he was like, oh yeah, I you know, oh, that's cool, you're straight edge. And I'm like, you know, it just started talking to him about it. And it's like, he had no clue whatsoever about, you know, anything beyond Davey Havoc exposing him to straight edge. And like, he didn't, and it was just so interesting to see that and not be like, he's like, oh yeah, I've heard of Minor Threat. And it's like, that's incredible that you're
that you know it, but you don't know it.
Right. The inception of the thing is, you know, you're, you know, whatever, sing the sorrow. And it's like, that's unbelievable. But it's, to your point, it's really cool, because then that movement, you know, becomes fresh to this person, and it doesn't seem like this totally outdated thing, you know, whatever, Year of the Knife being a straight edge band, and like all these other bands that are still flying that banner proudly, you know, keeps it fresh for people who can, you know, Year of the Knife can be the gateway band for a straight edge kid or whatever.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And I know there's been a couple of kids that have messaged us and talked to us that said that, you know, they found our music and became straight edge afterwards. And that's honestly the coolest thing to me.
Right. You're like mission
Just
accomplished.
that,
Right.
yeah, you know what I mean? Just that, and I think a lot of people that aren't straight edge, like some people have like a corny perception of it, but it's just like for me, I don't know any way that somebody is bettering their life. It's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with anyone else. So it's like if someone else wants to better their life and make a positive change, like who is anyone else to say like that it's corny or have anything to say about it? Like it has nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a person, it's a person trying to make their life incrementally better by making this decision. And, hopefully it will get them through, sometimes the most tough parts of your life, in high school and trying to find an identity. And, when you're not adding a self-destructive element to it, it's like, that's incredibly positive. So yeah. As two straight edge kids talking to each other about the,
I love dogs so much. That's why I'm incredibly excited to welcome Embark on as a sponsor. They are a dog DNA testing kit, and what makes them cool is they scan for 215 genetic health risks across 350 breeds. And I want to give you $60 off and free shipping. So go to embarkvet.com, use the promo code RAY, and it unlocks that offer. And it also unlocks so many cool things that you can find out about your pup. And it's super easy. You get a little test tube with a Q-tip. You put it in the pup's mouth, send it back to Embark. They email you all of these results. It's very fast, easy, and I love doing it. 72% of pup parents are puzzled when it comes to their dog's breed. It's time to end these guessing games. This holiday season, give the dog lover in your life something they won't expect, the chance to decode their dog. It's the perfect time to shop for an Embark dog DNA test. Right now, Embark has a limited time offer on their breed and health kit and purebred kit for listeners of this show. Go to embarkvet.com to get free shipping and save $60 with promo code RAY. Visit embarkvet.com and use promo code RAY to save $60 today. Do it for your pup. Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
There's never been a better time for football fans to join the huddle with BetMGM. Sign up today and place a $10 pregame wager on any pro football team to win. If any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game, you'll win $200 in free bets regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you make your first bet. Get on the field and find out why nothing beats a win with the king of sportsbooks. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in free bets if any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So when you started to, kind of tour and get out with, Year the Knife and start to experience kind of, the band life from that perspective, what was your relationship with touring? Did you immediately like it and take to it? Or was it kind of overwhelming because like you mentioned earlier, you'd like your alone time as well. And that's not possible in a touring band.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I love being on tour. I think that it really just depends if like the people in the band's personalities mesh well. And the thing is, like, we've all been friends for so long. Like, I've known Tyler since I was 14. Brandon since I was 15, and like the twins, I don't even know how long, maybe like 7 years now.
Sure.
10 years. But you know what I mean? Like we've all been friends and kind of grown up together to the point where it's like we know what to expect from each other. We know like when each person needs space or like how to make each other laugh. So I think that's kind of like the perfect blend of when you're touring, to have like a fun time on tour and not butt heads so much. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's certain tours I can think of that, like, we were talking about this the other day. There's certain tours that I can think of that were like fucking miserable experiences, or like, you know, you play a shit show or you have to like sleep on the cement somewhere or like something crazy.
Yep.
But it's like those are always like the funniest stories to tell later. You know what I mean? Like, you like
in the moment
cool.
It's terrible, but
right.
Yep.
Right. While you're experiencing it, you're like, God, this sucks. But then afterwards, you're like, that's like a really good story I can tell someone later.
It's it's a bonding moment. Like when you're all experiencing that, like, we literally can't sleep in the van because it's too hot. So we have to like sleep on the roof, and like, it's awful. And then a week later, you're like, dude, that was insane that we did that.
Like, it's literally crazy. There was this one place in Europe, like we just like had nowhere to stay. And then like our driver like happened to know some squat nearby. And like we just ended up staying in this like abandoned fucking warehouse.
Perfect.
And like I had like tied our like money bag, and like I had like everything like literally like wrapped around my body and like tied to me, so that if anybody like tried to pick it up, I would wake up.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
it's just like, yeah, this is great.
Right.
Good shit.
If you are going to steal this, you would literally have to take my body too.
Yeah, I was like, this is fine.
Yeah,
but it's like you look back on it now and you're just like, that was fucking crazy. Like that was like the first time we went to Europe and we had no idea what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And you were able to, you know, take all of these experiences, and, you know, that's the only reason I asked that question is, you know, like you were kind of mentioning before we were recording, like the notion of tour, you know, sometimes people, you know, especially, you know, what I like to call civilians, have no idea what the hell a tour is. They immediately think of a tour bus or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, this is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I think that the best part of tour is just getting to like see the world and play different places that we probably would have never gotten to go to otherwise, like with my best friends. That's really the best part of it. The perception that it's like, are you guys on a tour bus, or like you're staying in hotels every night? That's like really funny to me. That a lot of people have those expectations like starting out. And right. I think too, a lot of times like so much work goes into touring. Like it really is hard work. It's so much fun, but it's also a lot of hard work. And I think a lot of people, like I would get from people, oh, that's so cool. You basically get to go like on a vacation for a month with your husband. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
that's not the situation, but it is fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the way I've always explained it to people that have that notion, or, you know, are like, oh, that's cool. You get to take this time off. And it's like, well,
it's not time off.
No. Have you ever tried running a small logistics company across the country? Because, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Hey, we ran out of merch. Where are we going to ship this to? Hey, friend in Oregon, can I ship merch to you? Oh, you're not going to be home that day? It's like, oh, my gosh.
Oh, it's crazy. Or it's like, oh, the merch that was supposed to arrive in Chicago is not coming till tomorrow, and we have a 10-hour drive.
Right.
Like,
so
how do we reroute this?
Yeah, how can we accomplish this? Yeah, for sure. There's so many fun things.
Or like we drove to when we were driving to Sound and Fury, like we had gotten our van for the first time. It was like we hadn't rented it. It was like our van that we owned, and a huge rock came off this truck and just like shattered our windshield. And then it was so hot outside, it was like 105, and then it was so cold in our van that the crack just like grew all the way across. Like in a matter of 5 minutes, it was like the entire windshield. And we were just like, oh, this is awesome. So it was like, let's figure out how to get our windshield replaced.
Yep.
Let's figure out.
Yeah. How do we repair glass? Anyone a glass repair person? Nope. Okay, great. Let's figure this out.
Never a dull moment.
Nope. That's for sure. Two last things I want to hit on. You know, having the experience of obviously working in, you know, quote unquote, working in a band, and kind of, you know, starting to experience what the business side of that would look like, you know, once you guys are just like, wait, you're paying us to play a show? This is weird. And then obviously running, Candy Corpse or do you say Candy Corpse? I just want to make sure
Yeah.
I'm saying that. Okay, just want to make sure.
What else would it be?
Yeah,
I
well,
want to hear the other pronunciation.
Candy Core,
Oh, okay.
right? Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's Candy Corpse.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure the similarities between running a small business for a band and running a small business independent of a band. I presume you saw the immediate crossover between the two and how one could benefit the other and vice versa. Did that come apparent, I guess, pretty quickly as you started doing your own side hustle that is now your a full-time thing for you?
Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely did. And I continue to learn things from both that make me stronger at doing whatever the other one was. Like I learned things when we signed, like I learned how to like establish an LLC and like balance our books and like do taxes and stuff like that through the band and through Candy Corps. And it's like every time I learn something for one of them, like a better bookkeeping method. It's a lot of boring shit, but I learn a lot from each one of them that kind of makes it a stronger quote unquote business for both.
For sure. Yeah. The disciplines and the mistakes that you make, like from one,
Right.
you're like, oh, I did that wrong. Like I should have sourced this t-shirt from a different company because I paid like $2 more per unit or
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And like a lot of the connections that I have from Candy Corps, like I can use those to make Year of the Knife merch and vice versa. And it's funny because I actually like got into pins. My friend Max that used to run Shop Shogun, like he had a bunch of pins and he had like Chromax pin and Integrity pin. And I was like, these are so cool. Do you guys make them? And then like he set me up with someone to make pins. So it's kind of crazy that like that's how I got into doing stuff for Candy Corps. Because Candy Corps started out and I was just doing like stickers and stuff because I didn't really know, doing a full run of t-shirts when you have no established audience is a dumb idea because it's really expensive.
Sure, yeah.
And you're going to sit on them forever. But stickers, I could move pretty quick. And then when I went into pins, I think I kind of went into it at like the perfect time because there weren't a ton of fan art shops when I first started doing pins. Now it's like everybody's doing them. But I think that pins, like now people are a little bit like have an easier time making pins. But when I first started in it, it was like you had to have somebody recommend you or you had to like know someone to know how to get started.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, they benefited one another. And plus, essentially, I mean, this is something that, most bands understand as they start to, tour and get out there and having people want merchandise of them. You essentially are running a clothing line, whether you like to admit it or not. It's like, it's totally what it is,
Well, yeah. And I mean, like when you're traveling across country and you're, using full tanks of gas between venues and stuff like that, if we didn't have the ability to sell merch or if people weren't interested in buying merch, like it just wouldn't happen.
Right.
Like venues would not be able to pay bands enough to do full tours if merch wasn't in existence or as popular as it is.
Right. For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's always that notion of people really not caring that much about the band, but it's like, oh man, that's a sick shirt design. I'm gonna buy that.
Right. Well, and it's funny too because I think that this happens like more in Europe than it does in America. But like it would be funny that people would come up and be like, "What band is this?" And it says like Year of the Knife on the front. And you'd be like, "Year of the Knife," and they'd be like, "Design is cool. I'll buy it." And you're like, "All right."
Right. Oh, cool. We got a record too. Yeah.
Buy this too. You like vinyl? Like, oh, okay.
Right.
I'll take the vinyl.
There's also music that is attached to this T-shirt as well.
Check it out.
Yeah. That this is the vehicle in which we are able to get here.
It's crazy.
For sure. Clearly, you and your husband playing in a band, running a business, and living together, like all of this, most people would be like, okay, can you guys even like separate from one another? Can you like give each other some space? I mean, and then plus like the fact that you have twins in the band, like there are so many things that quote unquote don't make sense, where it's like, oh, it's a lot going on there. And I obviously you don't agree because you enjoy the experience that you're having. But I presume you can understand where people are like, okay, this is a lot, Madison. Like, are you sure you want this?
Yeah, I think that for a lot of people, they're like, I can't imagine being around like my significant other that much. But I mean, at the risk of sounding corny, like Brandon is also like my best friend,
Sure.
and the other guys in the band are too. So I'm sure some people would be like, I wouldn't want to hang out with my brother for months straight, but like the twins are like, they're each other's best friend. They get along super well. And Tyler I've known for longer than anyone. So I feel like it's like those weird bonds that make us like stronger as a band and as friends.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, it is a unique mixture where certain bands, like, when you get to know them and you understand that there's this like real deep rooted relationship where it's like,
Right.
a band tours for, a month and then they're like, hey, do you guys want to go on vacation together or whatever? It's like, what? Like, that's not common with most bands. Like, they need that separation. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think everybody like needs like a healthy amount of time apart. Like, I don't think anybody does well being around people constantly. But I think that it's just about like respecting each other's space and knowing like when people just need to be like left alone. I think that's the difference. Like, I know that like some bands have kind of like an antagonizer where if somebody wants to just like be by themselves, like that person will just like bother the shit out of them. And like touring with other friends bands and stuff like that, like you see certain things that you're like, I get why you guys are like fighting.
Right. Yeah, you're like, I see the fissures in this relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really funny. And the last thing I want to hit on was the fact that most people have certain perceptions and entry points to like what hardcore or metal is, and like similar to what we were talking about initially, where you're either an outdoor or an indoor kid. And, people look at Year of the Knife and it's like, oh yeah, working with Pure Noise. Like, of course there's less, quote unquote, stigma about that being a hardcore band on Pure Noise because, not only is Jake been a hardcore kid for as long as I've known him, but, the fact that, the label was known as a, sort of pop punk thing for a long time. And then obviously, with Knock Loose and other bands kind of shifting into that, it made it, more quote unquote comfortable, for people
Right.
But I'm sure there's been projections on you guys where it's like, oh, like, Year of the Knife, like, oh, you guys are, like Warp Tour hardcore or whatever. Or like, just those dispersions that get cast on bands. Like, have you guys felt that? Or am I just like, whatever, making up internet rumors or something like that?
No, I think that like there are some people that are label snobs and that, if they associate like one genre of music or like one specific band with a label that they like, you know what I mean? Like, people are always going to have their own opinions on things. But honestly, from what I've found, like, I feel like people care way too much about like labels and also just like genres. Like, everyone wants to bash certain genres or say, oh, I'm not that, I'm this, when it's like so many bands are influenced by so many different things. And I think that the sound of the band should speak more than anything that it's labeled or categorized as. So I definitely don't think you're wrong. Like, I think that is a thing for some people, but it's not like I've never had anybody that I know like say it to us.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen some things online, like on YouTube, like somebody's like, oh, I'm surprised that this band is on Pure Noise, but it's like Terror's on Pure Noise and Knock Loose is on Pure Noise. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of heavier bands.
Yeah.
I think they do a good job of like really having like a well-rounded roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I just always find, I mean, it is so dumb and irrelevant, those conversations, but they still exist in the same way that, like, people for sure, I can tell you for a fact, were, it's like, oh, You're the Knife on Sound and Fury or whatever. Like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, even though you guys played and everybody obviously had fun, but there's that notion where it's like, oh yes, like, of course Terror can play Sound and Fury because they played for many years, but like You're the Knife, like, I don't know, they seem a little bit like outsiders in a way, even though you're not, but you know what I'm saying? That kind of, those conversations that go on that aren't, they're not beneficial in general, but they still happen.
Right. Yeah. I think like, I don't know. I think a lot of people just like worry too much about appearances, and there's a lot of posturing in hardcore. There's a lot more cool shit in hardcore, but there's a lot of people posturing and trying to look cool.
Sure.
So I don't know. I feel like the best thing for that is just like focus on what you're doing with your friends, and if people have some shit to say, prove them wrong.
Right. Yeah.
And if they're into it, then prove them right.
Totally. Yeah. Keep your head down and just do it. one last thing, I promise. But the
No, you're good. You're good.
the idea of kind of growing up when I use that term maybe in air quotes, but like, being a public figure, like, people pay attention to people in bands, and clearly you are the face of your company from that perspective as well. How have you grappled the idea? I mean, clearly there's a sliding scale here. It's not like you're whatever, a mainstream celebrity, because obviously that's not the case, but like, people have certain.
You're saying that I'm not famous?
I am sorry, Madison. I apologize. I don't mean to break it to you. But just
I'm crushed.
Yes, I know. I understand. But that notion that you are visible in ways that a random person going to a show is has a different visibility, and the attention that can kind of bring. Has that been something that's been you've had to like learn how to navigate, or is that something that, like you said, you kind of just keep your head down and do your own thing?
Honestly, I think just keep my head down and do my own thing. The stuff that we do and like playing music together, I think it's amazing if people, feel something from it, and if it speaks to them, and if it helps them through, whatever sort of struggle they're going through, because, so many hardcore bands did that for me. But I feel like the most important thing is to just stay true to yourselves and stay true to what we want to do. And like, I don't know, it's hard sometimes. Like, it's easy to say, don't worry about what other people are saying or thinking, but I feel like you're just happier if you don't.
Sure. And I think too, there is that level of unwanted attention once people start to, view you as a, where it's just like, oh, like, I think, this person in this band is, cute or attractive or whatever. And that's sort of like, I won't even call it like idol worship, because that sounds really dramatic, but you know what I'm saying? There is that, people get attracted to certain people and just by the sheer fact that they're in a band. And then you start to have to like kind of reckon with that, where it's just like, oh, well, that's not something that, I am not only not interested in, but I have to understand how, that is a perception that people will have. And I have to, either navigate around it or reckon with it and just be like, well, that's not something I have to, give any attention to.
I think honestly, most of my interactions with people have been really positive. And just with the band in general, it was really cool. We went up to the Black Lives Matter protest in Wilmington, I think it was last weekend. And Andy he was like carrying one of our Year of the Knife totes. And this kid came up and was like, hey man, like I love that band, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, oh, that's us. And he was like, what? That's so cool. And it was like such a Delaware thing to happen. Just to like Delaware is so small. It's like everybody knows everybody, or like you run into somebody so frequently. But it's like things like that where it's positive. Like, I don't think that any of us are on the level where some random person on the street's going to like freak out to see us.
Right.
I mean, yeah. It's not like a celebrity encounter by any means. And, I think that people in general fixate still on girls in bands. Like any of, my friends that are in bands as well. It's like, if you look at their live streams or their YouTube comments, there's always people making like weird objectifying comments, or they don't even think they're objectifying, but they're just like, they're just like supporting them, but it's in kind of a weird way.
Yeah.
And I think that will be there more for girls than for guys, but not to say that I haven't seen it for some of our guy friends that we've toured with, because people can kind of just go crazy for them.
Yes.
But yeah, I think long story short, I think that I just always try to focus on next big project, next big thing, keep our head down, next tour.
Sure.
More than worrying about like what people are saying or thinking. And if people support us, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's I think a healthy way to not only operate as a, band person, business owner, whatever, but just in life, Yeah.
Well, and also people can be so shitty online to each other, especially when there's like anonymity attached to it. So I think it's just best to like worry about like that shit has really no impact on you unless you let it. So it's like, if you can focus on the shit that you can change and you can do better and you can grow, like why wouldn't you put your energy into that instead of worrying about what people say?
Absolutely, for sure. It's wasted energy otherwise.
Right.
Well, Madison, this has been great. Thank you for spending this lovely morning/afternoon with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Madison, for coming on the show. just a great human being, right? She just so sweet, so thoughtful, and I loved having her on. So thank you very much, Madison, for making that happen. And next week, I've got a rad discussion with a person named Adam Klopp, who performs music under the name Choir Boy. I got keyed into this record via Dias Records, and I don't know, I love the record. It's so good. And it's funny, I actually have seen people on social media and Twitter talking about how they thought that this record was going to be like a SoundCloud rapper. Because the artwork is really unconventional, but it is like akin to the whole like Drab Majesty, Ceremony, like all of that sort of really dark post-punk yet catchy. It's really good. So I had to have Adam on the show, and that's what we did. So that's what we got for next week. Until then, please be safe, everybody.
You'd owe me so much gas money for this camping trip if it wasn't for Zipcar.
Yeah, whatever, Miss Zipcar. Well, I'm pretty sure Zipcar's not the only car-sharing company that covers gas.
Yeah, it is.
Nuh-uh.
All right. Where else do you get gas included?
Use the Zipcar app to book a car near you with gas included. You don't need to own a car to have one.
Hey, it's me, Ray, host of this very podcast. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help you live healthier? And how would you use that knowledge to change your life? You can hear me talk about how insights from my DNA have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston explores how DNA isn't just about ancestry, it's a key to understanding your health. On this season, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge has impacted the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you, creators, for seeing what no one else could see and making it a reality, for challenging us to dream bigger, even when times are challenging. This holiday season, we're here to help you get more with hand-picked gifts on gaming, photography, and video gear. Can't miss exclusives, daily deals and rewards, advice from the experts, and super fast shipping. Adorama thanks you, and we promise we won't stop. Create, no matter what. Shop Adorama.com today.